Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. My name is Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And for this episode, we are going to take a look at the new Criterion Blu-ray for a film Sean Baker did with Shih-Ching Tsou back in 2004. And it is called Takeout. And I know a lot of you are familiar with Sean Baker, especially in light of things like, Red Rocket and Tangerine and The Florida Project, Starlet. He's got a lot of movies that people know, understandably. And you've probably seen this movie if you're a fan of his. And I am. But for whatever reason, I had not gotten around to Takeout just yet. And I'll be honest, I am kind of glad I waited, and I'll tell you why. The bottom line is that this is a really, really great Criterion release of the film. And if you don't know the story of the film, it follows a New York City illegal immigrant. I think he's Chinese in the film. He works at a Chinese takeout. And it's basically a day in the life sort of thing, but the setup is at the beginning of the film, we see a couple heavies, a couple bad guys come to his apartment where he's living with a group of people, I'm assuming a group of illegal folks that are all working in New York, and they roust him out of bed, and they basically say, you have a loan that's outstanding, and they take some money from him, but they say you still owe us $800, or the boss says that your debt is going to be doubled. If you don't get us $800 by the end of the day, we're going to double your debt. And so you immediately have this tension about the film that you're like, our main character's name is Ming Ding. He's played by Charles Jang. And so you're immediately like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. What's he going to do? And so then we see him come down to the, takeout restaurant where he works and start to try and figure things out. He's asking some friends if they can loan him some money to cover this $800. He gets a little bit of it. He has a really good friend at the takeout that is kind enough to say, because he says to his friend, like, the most I've ever made in tips in one day is like $80 or $90. So what am I going to do? And the neat thing about the day that we're talking about is that it's raining. So a lot more people are ordering takeout. So this guy who also helps with deliveries says, you know what? Take my deliveries and I'll just, I'm okay. You can use the money, which is really nice. So there's some kind folks involved, and just the restaurant milieu is really great. So then it becomes this question of like seeing him riding around New York, and can he get the $800 from the tips? And it's just a beautiful portrait of New York, sort of through the lens of Ming Ding and how people interact with him. We get to see lots of different parts of New York. We get to see and peek into lots of apartments. There's a great story in one of the features about how, I can't remember, I think they put it in some free, if it was a casting publication or whatever, that they would pay people $5 to basically take an order and, receive an order from the actor in the film and, maybe say a couple lines, or just, and it was $5 per person. And so they got a bunch of different people, and you get to see sort of a look inside a bunch of different lives in that way. And so it's a really interesting portrait of New York, between the riding in the rain through the streets of New York, which are wet, and everything's just kind of, I don't know, it just has a really neat feel to it. And you really start to feel for Ming Ding, who's a pretty reserved, quiet guy, and somebody who's obviously really stressed, but he's telling his buddy about it, and so he's just going through his day, and we're seeing all this stuff, and we're seeing the inner workings of the restaurant, and this character they call Big Sister, who is a woman that actually worked in a Chinese takeout restaurant, and it's like Sean Baker's done in a lot of his films. He's using what he calls first-timers. You could call them non-actors in some ways. These are people that haven't performed a lot before. There may be there's at least a couple more in here. Some of these are actual actors, but that have performed in other things, but there's a lot of non-actor first-timer types, and I love the energy and the vibe that gives to Sean Baker's movies, and he really, and his co-director are really able to coax or direct or just allow these performances to unfold. And so it's got a really nice feel to it, and I really enjoyed it. Like, one of those things where I was like, why didn't I see this? But I will be honest, the way that this looks on this Blu-ray, now this is the thing that I really want to sell people on. If you've seen the movie even, this will be a different experience, because it is shot on consumer grade mini DV camera in summer of 2003. Okay, and so that gives a certain video look, right? But Sean has told me that they did a full restoration on this. I think they went back to the original mini DV tapes. I'm hoping I'm not getting this wrong, but the result will be something that I can explain at least. They take the tapes, they go out, I think, to film, and then bring that back in digitally and restore that way. And so what you have is, instead of the film looking like straight DV video, it now has a little bit of grain and texture to it. So it looks more like either, present day digital video with grain, or even maybe film, so it has a filmic texture to it that, to me, brought me into the story more. If I was watching this as a straight shot on video kind of movie, there's something about the way that looks to me that takes me out of a movie sometimes. It's almost like it's too real, and it just doesn't, my brain doesn't connect the same way to it the way that it does when the grain is there. And there's a nice little bit of grain to this, and it's just a beautiful looking restoration, So what I'm saying is, if you've seen the movie, see it again on this Blu-ray, and I think it will change how you feel about it. Because had I seen it as video, I don't know if I would have reacted exactly the same way. All the content is there, all the emotion is there. I would have felt that, but the way that this looks really had an impact on me. And so this becomes, for me, one of my favorite discoveries of 2022. And so, like I said, although I wish I had seen it, I should have seen it. I'm a fan of Sean. I'm a fan of his work. But seeing it this way really made all the difference to me, and just knocked it out of the park for me, ultimately. But, this movie, it's not just about New York. It's about the plight of illegal immigrants. It's about just how tough a life it is in general in that sort of milieu, as well as just working at a restaurant. We find out that Ming Ding has borrowed money at like 30% to pay back his family because of, the debt that his brother had to deal with too. And there's this whole idea they're talking about in either one of the commentaries or one of the making ofs about the cost to be smuggled to the United States at that time was something like $40,000, and it's just really expensive. And so you're kind of in this crushing debt to begin with, and it's really hard to dig your way out. And so there's this sense of, tension about it that I really like. But it's one of those things where you're watching it, and it's very sort of situational, and it's just, you just kind of get caught up in it. And, they're just like wondering, like, what are the things that are going to get in the way? Will he get an order wrong and have to go back and lose time on that? We'll get a flat tire. What kind of things can affect him that can throw off his day? And you just become more and more and more invested in it as it goes. And, it's the ending is powerful stuff. It's really well done, and a great second feature. This is Sean Baker's second feature. He's co-directing, like I said, with Shih-Ching Tsou, and He had done Four Letter Words previous to that in 2000, which I have to admit I haven't seen that either. I mean, fingers crossed, here's hoping maybe that gets some kind of a nice release at some point as well. So I may just wait and see if that happens, because experiencing Takeout the way that I did with this Blu-ray really made a huge difference to me. So I got to recommend that if you haven't seen it, you should see it. If you like Sean's films, it's very much in the vein of what he's doing now. You know, you can feel the verite thing. It's handheld. It's Dogma 95 influence. They talk about both. He and Shih-Ching talk about how they were influenced by Dogma 95 in particular, and how that influenced the style and what they did with this film. And you can feel that. And if this is like a Dogma film, this is one of my favorite Dogma films I've ever seen. You know, I like that style. I thought it was an interesting, stylistic thing that happened in the mid 90s, early 2000s. And like I said, this is among my favorites of that style that I've seen. But Sean's, shooting it himself for the most part. I think it's all him. I don't know if it's all him for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's him on the camera most of the time. And so that's kind of cool. It's got a very intimate feeling to it. And Charles Jang performance is just really understated and really impactful over time, as you watch it. So it's a great movie is the bottom line. And it's never looked better than it does here. And hats off to, all those involved in the restoration, Criterion and everyone. Really makes a big difference. And, like I said, this is going to be, I think, a revelation to a lot of people that haven't seen the movie or have seen it previously before this restoration. So this is really, really great stuff in terms of the look. Now, in terms of supplements, we've got a bunch of stuff here. We have a commentary track that I think was recorded in 2006 with Sean Baker, Zoe, actor Charles Jang, and that's fun. It's a cool sort of hangout track. They're giving their recollections. It's funny because they even commented on it in the track. It's very much being done in the spirit of the film itself, because they're like, I don't know if they're in an apartment, but at one point, like, a heater kicks on, and Sean is, like, very apologetic about that, the noise and everything. So it's very loose in terms of the track, but they have a lot of interesting things to say about stuff they're remembering as they watch the film. And it's just a warm commentary track. Very nice stuff. But also interesting to hear that snapshot of Sean Baker in 2006 talking about that film before he's done all this other work. So what's intriguing is that this has a couple instances of that, in that we have also this making of the film. It is from 2006, produced by Sean Baker. It's about 17 minutes and 50 seconds. It's sit-down interviews with Sean, Shih-Ching, Charles Jang, Chen Hua Yu, Wang Ti Li, the big sister character they call her in the movie, Colin Justin Wan, Jeff Huang, and they're talking to all the actors just a couple years after the movie's made. And so it's really interesting to hear those recollections just a few years after. And then they're also talking about inspirations, like I said, Dogma 95. Sean mentions The Idiots being his favorite film of all time at that time. I think it's still his favorite on his Letterboxd right now, one of his favorites. So obviously a movie that meant a lot to him. The films of the Dardenne brothers is mentioned multiple times on the commentary and in this making of. Cassavetes, obviously. Shirley Clark's film Cool World. New York films from the 1970s like Panic in Needle Park, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, The French Connection. The gritty realism of that was definitely an influence on this. So there's inspiration, talks of how the actors got involved. It's a nice 17-minute plus look at the film in 2006. What we also have, though, is Sean Baker, Shih-Ching, and Wang Ti Li, the big sister character, and Jen Hua Yu talking about the film in 2022. It's called Reflecting on Takeout. It's about 28 minutes. And so you get some of the same kind of stuff, but you get all these people now that much further removed, not quite 20 years removed, 18 years removed from the making of this film. And it's interesting to hear what they remember. And, you get a few things sort of reiterated, but it's just really interesting to see the difference in terms of the reaction and the way they're thinking about the film now versus then. It's not wholly different. It's just interesting. Like if I just had seen video of myself talking about something 18 years ago and then talking about it this year, I just know that it would feel different. I would be speaking differently about it because of all the life experiences I've had since then. It would be a different thing. So I love that you have that perspective on it. In addition to that, we have some deleted scenes. About 6.5 minutes, we have an alternate opening with the bad guys. It's about 4 minutes. An extended scene of some teenagers in the restaurant that's sort of in the film already. And then a quick deleted scene where Sean Baker plays a guy that almost hits Ming Ding with his car door, basically does. So it's about 6.5 minutes of deleted scenes. But overall, it's a really nice package. And like I said, the film just really, really hooked me. Really was one of those. I was like, I read the back and I was like, oh, is this going to be like Uncut Gems or something? Not obviously this is before that film, but just in terms of like the tension of having to pay back this debt. And it's not that. The tension is there. It's sort of riding underneath everything, but not in that sort of like super intense way. It just allows the film to be and allows us to just watch as these interactions happen. And we see the different way, like I said, that each person that Ming Ding goes to deliver food to is a little different in the way that they treat him and how they tip him. And this will definitely make you, the restaurant footage makes the food look really good, makes me want to have Chinese food, makes me want to order takeout, makes me want to leave a large tip. That is definitely something you will want to do after you see this movie, because it just shows you all the work and how tough a job it is and how much, you should be appreciating it if somebody brings you food to your house, or to your apartment. And so, yeah, it's just one of those movies it's sort of a food movie in that way too, which I love. So there's really a lot to dig into here, and the performances are very naturalistic, and it's just really, I don't know, I was really knocked out by it, and so, like I said, I'd call it one of my favorite discoveries of the year, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So if this is something that seems interesting to you, pick up this Blu-ray, check out the movie, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So anyway, that is Takeout. And big thanks to Sean Baker for getting me a copy of it to watch a little bit before it came out. I know it's not out until a little later, and I was honored and overjoyed to get to see it before it came out so that I can tell everybody, please check it out, because it's great. So thanks again for your time. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.